Hello, everybody. Randy Patterson again here with Boomerocity. Gosh, even if you're not a baby boomer, you've obviously heard about the Beatles. And maybe even if you're not of the baby boomer generation, you may have read a lot about the Beatles. And if you've read a lot about the Beatles, and especially as individuals at an individual level, perhaps you've read deep into the John Lennon story. And if you have, there is no doubt something mentioned about the lost weekend. And that lost weekend involved when John and Yoko Ono separated. And it was for about an almost 2 year period. And during that time, he was with a young lady by the name of May Payne. And there's a tremendous story there. And now there is a tremendous documentary about that story, and it involves May Payne. It's her story, her side of that story, so that it could be there for posterity. And I had the very distinct privilege of speaking with May about this documentary. She had been on my bucket list ever since I launched Boomerocity almost 15 years ago. I created a list of people who I found very interesting or very intriguing, or I just wanted to talk to. And I've got to check a lot of names off that list. The list is now pretty short, and she was on there. And now that name on that list is checked off, but I hope it's not the only interview I have with her. Fascinating woman, an entrepreneur, very creative. But we talk a lot about this documentary called The Lost Weekend. You see the poster of it behind me here. Comes out in a couple weeks. And I'm looking forward to watching it. I'm looking forward to watching it more than once. So without any further ado, here's my first interview with the iconic May Payne. Until next time, this is Randy Patterson with Boomerocity. Take care. Well, May, it's a pleasure to finally get to meet you. It's been, you have been on my list of someone on my bucket list, of a short bucket list of people I wanted to interview before I check out of this life. And now I'm not ready to check out yet now that I've met you, but at least there's one last name I'm looking forward to here. So
Get that checklist going.
that's right.
Okay.
Got to make a new one here. But I want to get right to the chase and talk about this great documentary. I've seen a couple of clips from it. I love what I see on here. And I want to start off by saying that, obviously when there's women associated with icons, I don't want to say behind them, because I feel like women are partners in men's lives and vice versa.
Thank you.
So when there's a lot of misconceptions that go towards women who are associated with any kind of icon, music, entertainment, politics, you name it. Women seem to get a bum rap in their association with these people, their contributions to a career or to the quality of life. And I wanted to ask you, what do you feel are the biggest misconceptions about you in relation to not only with John, but also just, in the pop culture scope of things? And do you feel like this documentary addresses that in a way that you're satisfied with?
I like your question, and I will definitely tell you that you're right. It's women are just thrown that we had nothing to do with them. When it came to like, for instance, with John, a lot of people thought I just spent a weekend with him. They have no idea what the work that went behind it all. And even when I was married to Tony Visconti, people don't know that I did so much work behind the scene. It's always like, oh, you just answered the phone. There's nothing. You didn't do anything. They have no idea. And when I worked with John, it was like, whatever he wanted, I made his life easy, is what it was when it came to the work, because his creativity was very important, and to his writing. And it'd be like, oh, I need that piano. And I would say, what do you want? What kind? And I would go out and find it for him. Or I would call up the studio. What time do you want it? So everything was coordinated for him. So all he had to do was walk in there. Mm-hmm. And that's basically what I used to do with him for the studio. I enjoyed it. I truly enjoyed it. And women get a bum rap. The misconception is when you go out with a star, oh, they don't do anything. They just lay around and, whatever. And I've heard it before, and I said, "Okay, fine. Whatever you wanna believe. I know my worth." And some people have actually said, "So why do you need to do this movie?" I said, "Because I have to defend myself. Because other people will make that comment for me, and it's time that I stand up for myself." It's not the fact that if there wasn't any other comment and it was minor, that's one thing, but everybody wants to put you down for whatever you've done,
Mhm.
that you didn't exist in that life. And other people have more money, they could do whatever they want. I'm the struggling person that has to deal with it. So I let it go for how many years already? I mean, my relationship started 50 years ago, and
Mm,
it's taken me this long for it to come out.
mhm.
Yeah, 50 years ago, now this is where mind games would have been getting ready to be put out, you know? So, here we are.
Doesn't it? The time flies. Gosh.
Yeah. And so it's a long time coming, and it was time for me to finally stick up for myself, as it were.
So with that as a mindset, and I believe we all evolve, we all grow, we all heal, hopefully, over things. I know in my life, I certainly have, and there's, sometimes the wounds can be pretty deep. So I'm curious for you and your personal growth in all this ever since the weekend was over, so to speak, and everything that transpired after that, including, the horrible murder of John. Has there been a shift? Did you feel like there was a healing that took place in you from the time you first started working on this documentary until today? Do you feel like there was a growth, a healing, something cathartic about the whole process?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it feels good to let go. I had all this memory sitting here. Even though I did a book, you put it out, but it's still there because people didn't see it. Now it's out of print, all the books. So, it was in each step of the way, it was different. And now this is a generation where visual is important.
Mhm.
And, because people say, I don't read. Well, that doesn't help me with the books, so that would be thrown out. They look at pictures and I would tell stories, but then they have to read again. And you know what? It wasn't the medium is the visual at this point in time. And so it was at the right time. And God knows it is the right time. I mean, 50 years.
Wow.
50 years ago, I started my relationship with John. So here I get to talk about it.
Yep. Very cool. And this is kind of closely related to what I just asked, and especially about the misconception thing, is I know that you've obviously been vilified in the press and among fans, people that don't even have a clue of what really happened. Like you said, some people think it was literally a 2-day weekend as opposed to 2 years or almost 2 years. Um, do you feel that in addition to the misconceptions that you're you have answered the vilification and responded to the attacks in a way that you feel like, all right, if people keep saying, if people keep thinking what they do, at least you've said your piece in its totality, that if they choose to ignore that, then that's their own problem.
I think the filmmakers did a wonderful job. I did not sit with them on a day-to-day basis to look at this film or to make the film. They knew my story. Everybody knew. They've interviewed me. They knew what I was looking at. And when they put things in, they would just ask me certain questions to make sure they were going in the right direction and looking at it. I had no idea till the end when I was doing the narration that how they put the film. And I'm glad that I didn't because they could tell it so that it was more succinct. I think if I was telling it, it'd be all over the place. And I would want this in and I would want that, and it wouldn't make the story for understanding for people.
Mm.
They knew that if they saw this and they sat down and people were watching it, they can understand it. And I think and it's so complicated, it wasn't such a simple thing like I wake up in the morning, go to sleep at night, it was just so complicated with all the people involved that you got to get somebody else to be not involved to look at it and say, hey, this is how it went. Um, I think it really, when I saw it, it warmed me up so much. It warmed my heart. I cried. I've seen it so many different versions not different versions, so many times, but in different medium format, like on a small screen, big screen, and it just worked. A friend of mine sat with me, and he had seen it at least 5 times with me in different places, and he kept saying each time, and especially when it went to the theater and the big screen, he goes, "Did you add something to this?" I said, "No." So it's like there's so much to it there. You wouldn't think so, but there's so much to this movie that I can't tell you how many people said to me, "I'm gonna watch it over and over again because I know I'm missing something here," and I only have 90 minutes, an hour and a half. It's 90 minutes. And people would say, "You didn't put this and this and this." I said, "You can only get so much in. So you got to get the story down."
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
So let's jump back a little bit and maybe now that I kind of got ahead of it and like post documentary, pre documentary, what finally, I realize you feel like enough time has passed, but were there other motivating factors to say, all right, May, I've got to do this and I got to do it now? What finally gave you that total release to finally tell the whole story almost entirely in your own words?
I think, I didn't have a time frame because like I said, I fended off a lot of people who kept saying, "Oh, I want to do a story on John Lennon, and your portion's in there." And then I thought to myself, "Why am I giving this away?"
Right.
So because I know it's not going to be about me.
Mhm.
So what's the sense when they tell me it's a John story? It's not going to be about me.
Right.
So, and coming from my side, and I said nobody would understand it except coming from me and where I was sitting. So I just didn't want to do it. But it wasn't until I saw Eve we were having dinner, and when she told me, "Oh, I'm doing women's plays, I'm directing this, and I'm working on documentaries," and somehow, just at that moment, when she said the word documentary, I said, "That's it. That's what I want to do." And she looked at me. I said, "Are you sure?" I said, "Yes, I'm ready." I have no reason or why, but it was just like a light bulb went off.
Yeah.
That was that moment. So it wasn't planned. So it was just then. And
Good.
um I was very happy that Eve and Richard Kaufman and Stuart Samuels all said, "Yes, let's take this project on."
What part of the documentary are you proudest of? You look at it and you just go, if anybody only sees one part of this film, that's the one you're like, yeah, that's it.
I guess what it was like with the animation where John wrote the song for me,
Mhm.
and I did not know the impact that I had on him,
Mm.
um, of me being together with him for the first time, and then the next day he says, "I've written something," and I said, "What do you mean?" He hadn't been writing. He had been like, he was just he was just we're just finishing Mind Games, which he did in 2 weeks because he said, I want to go into the studio." Um, but it was on that level where he it was just invigorating for him. And like I said, I didn't realize, and then hearing those words, I kept thinking, did he just write a song for me? It's like, oh my God, didn't expect it.
How cool. How cool.
Yeah.
What do you hope people take away from the film when it's all said and done?
One, that it wasn't a 2-day weekend with me and him. A lot of it, the antics were that people think that we lived in LA, but we really lived in New York. We flew back and forth, and there was a lot of things going on. You talk about like the recording sessions, what was happening. But I wanted them to also know that John was just happy to be out and about and experiencing life, seeing his friends and brothers, like when I say his brothers, he used to say that, my brothers, George and Ringo and Paul. And everybody's asking about what was it like? There was no animosity. There was just real love. Um, Whatever the business that they didn't like, that's put aside. When they were together, they just talked about what they were doing at the moment, family, friends, who they saw, what they were doing. Nothing intense. And whatever it was, I was lucky enough to be there with my camera to take pictures, like when they were dissolving the Beatles, and a lot of people said, I wish they didn't dissolve. But sitting there, I realized they had to break apart to come together again, as it were, because they were so tied to contracts. Now they were free to do whatever they want. That in January of 75, when Paul and Linda came by for a visit, and they were telling us about how they were going down to New Orleans to do the next album, which of course was subsequently Venus and Mars.
Mhm.
And they were happy and they can't wait to go and all this. And a couple of days later, John's going, I like New Orleans, and then, he's sitting there and he's strumming and he's early in the morning and he says, May, I got to ask you something. I said, what's that? He goes, what would you think if I wrote with Paul again? And I mean, it was like The Exorcist. My head swung around. I said, what? I said, of course. I said, I think it would be great. And he said, then he went to, well, why? And I said, well, solo wise, you guys are good. But when the two of you get together, that takes you to another level. No one could beat you in your writing.
Mhm.
He goes, yeah, okay. I knew that that was where it was heading, but
Mhm.
they weren't in a contract to say they had to do it. They could be free to do it.
Right.
And so when we were talking about on the, there was the day he went to visit Yoko because she was calling, I want you to come today. I need you to come. I'm going to help you quit smoking. And then she was frantic. And I got a sinking feeling and I didn't want him to leave. But he said, listen, she didn't, she was one of those types of people that she'll call until you finally say yes.
Mhm.
She goes, when I come home, we'll go out to dinner, then we'll get the tickets, we'll make the plans, we'll go down to New Orleans, we'll see Paul and Linda. I knew that if I got him down there, it would have gotten back together and do something together. He
Mm.
wanted to see them in the studio.
Mm.
So
Mhm.
obviously it didn't happen.
Right.
So that was it.
An interesting touch to the film that in the clips I saw was the addition of Julian. You and Julian are the only two who are, it's not archived film. It's, directly for the documentary. I
So
thought,
was Chris O'Dell.
oh, I didn't know that. I didn't see that in there. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
No, it was decided not to show everybody. And so Alice Cooper's new, and and so was and Chris O'Dell, um, Fran, there were a few people. They were new. Those were
Oh,
new.
okay, cool. I didn't realize that. That's
Yeah.
like, now I really can't wait to see it all with all those additionals on there. That just, the mystique of it's really intriguing me. But the addition of Julian, I think symbolically it says some things, but from your standpoint, what, how, how do you feel about that? And just what comments on that?
I think I was very, very um, happy. I was very appreciative and honored that he would do this with me. And I know that he also thought of his mother because his mother and I were best friends. We were good friends to each other. And I know that she always wanted we always wanted to do the best for Julian. That's where it came down to. And so I was very happy that he wanted to participate in this, and it made a world of difference. And I think that because he was there, and I wanted him to always be a part of his father's life,
Mhm.
which he hadn't been for a couple of years, and it was important for me to make sure that he was still there. And in fact, every phone call that I got when I talked to John after we split, I would say, "You are talking to Julian, aren't you?" And he said, "Yes, I am." I said, "Good. Don't stop, please." I just wanted to keep that going. And it was a time also for me to help. It's like I said, in that whole time that I was with John, I was trying to do all the healing for everyone, whether it be his friends, whether it be like the Paul, the George, who we hadn't seen, all of these people, Ringo, and then hanging out with friends. I mean, Keith Moon came up to me and said, "Now that's the John I remembered," which was really lovely to say to me. And
Mhm.
then, and then you see all of this and gave Cynthia and John a closure. They never had it before. So he hadn't seen Cynthia since they broke apart, and there was no talking to each other. And I thought it was very important that they got closure because he was so nervous having to talk to her that she was bringing Julian over for the first visit. And I said to him, "I'm sorry, you have no rights here. You haven't seen your son, and it'll be fine." And it did. It turned out great. And then after that, things smoothed out, and it was great for Julian.
Yeah. That's a gift that lasts eternity, I think, that you helped orchestrate there.
It was
Um,
important.
Julian's on my bucket list too, so that's, and if I get to talk to him, I'm gonna mention this interview. Um, and wrapping things up, I know we just have a few minutes left here. Um, I'd like to give you the opportunity, if you want, you can pick any and all of this. I'll give you all three, my last three questions. You can pick and choose. All right.
Okay.
What would you like to tell fans about your other ventures? What's next for you, if, either in support of this documentary or anything else? And at the end of it all, when your life's over, how do you want to be remembered and what do you hope your legacy is?
God. Um, Let me do the first two questions because they work together hand in hand. I
Okay.
work, I'm right now, I design jewelry, I'm doing the photography. Right now, the photography and the movie are running in together at the moment. As I'm talking about doing the press junket here, I'm also out with the photo exhibition where people all across America, I'm doing this with this guy Scott Siegelbaum, and we're just running across America and going to different cities and exhibiting all the photos that I have, excuse me, of John.
Mhm.
Uh, and uh, and they've never seen, and the it's great because people said to me they've never seen him smile. So these are different. I said this is my home life. So you're getting to see an intimate side of John
Mhm.
in our life because it was not meant to be out there being selling photos. So now you're getting a chance to see what it was like in our household. It's all these candid shots. And, and doing the film, it works hand in hand because a lot of the pictures are in there. A lot of the people have come up when they see it, they go, "Oh my God," they get to take John home, as I would say. You get to take him home in a different setting. And
Now, is
it's
that going
not.
to be is that a book that you've got coming out with the photos, or is that?
No, I did that years ago. This is a photo exhibition. All my photos I took of John, not all. I did a portion of it, and each year, each several months, I'll put something else out to go along with it. There's about 30, 31 photos out there right now, and people can come out and they've bought prints that they like to have John in their home.
Very cool.
There's one that's called The Cynic. There's one that's called Father and Son. Those are two popular ones where father and son is Julian and John together.
Wow. Very.
Yeah. So it's important. And what I like to be remembered, that I was part of he John loved three women and I happen to be one of them. And and there I hope I have done our relationship well together. He and I traveled on a journey. And with him, he had his first and only #1 single with a #1 album.
Wow. Wow.
In his lifetime, that was it. And there was no other producer on there except him. And if anybody didn't know, Number 9 Dream is my voice. So it was only us.
Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting. Very interesting. Well, May, this was a thrill for me. I appreciate you taking the time. Michael, thank you for making it happen. And please know that my door is open to you, obviously. If you got anything else you want to promote somewhere down the line, yeah, I can do my small part. I'm not Rolling Stone magazine, and I'm kind of glad about that. But I am who I am, and I do have a niche there that can be exploited, and I'd gladly open that door for you so that I can do my part to help. So please remember
Thank
me,
you.
and my door's open, and I can't wait to see the rest of the film.
I can't
And
wait for you to see it too.
I wish you all the success and good result from it all. So thank you
Where
very.
are you located?
I am to quote a Beatles song, a line from a Beatles song. I live in the Smoky Mountains way down south. I live in Sevierville, Tennessee.
Oh, okay.
That's where
I
my
just wanted to
studio
know
is.
where you were. So
Yep, yep,
so no wonder you are close enough to Nancy and because she's
yep.
up in Nashville.
Yep.
And
We met when I worked in Nashville for a while, and I reached out to her, and we developed a very good, close friendship. Like I said, she's like a big sister to me. And Chris is a little bit. We're not as close, but Chris and I exchange notes once in a while. No, she's got a documentary, I think. This
yes,
so.
yes,
And
I know.
a little secret. Were you close to Ken Mansfield?
I was not close, but we knew each other and we talked. Yes.
Yeah, we're down putting together, trying to a little memorial interview with Chris, um, Nancy, and Marshall Terrell, who worked with Ken a lot.
Yes, I know Marshall.
And so we were just going to have a chat, just remembering Ken a year after his passing. And because I interviewed Ken several times, he signed all of his books for me, and he's kind of, from a journalistic standpoint, he's a big brother to me, and I miss
Yeah.
him dearly. I really
When
do.
I did I had a Blog Talk Radio. He came on and was my guest and we'd had a great time talking. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
So we were
well,
all
thank
there.
you. Thank you, May. I wish you all the best, and let's talk
Thank you.
again down the road whenever I can be of help. Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Enjoy
Thank
the
you.
film.
All right. Take care. Bye bye.